The storm clouds stretched endlessly across the North Pacific, their gray tendrils clawing at the ocean like desperate fingers. In the midst of this tempest, squadron leader Siren Nakamura fought to keep her F-22 Raptor level as lightning split the sky around her. Static crackled through her headset, the radio channels alive with panic and confusion. Three Russian Sukhoi Su-57 felons had emerged from the storm like phantoms, their stealth signatures barely registering on radar until they were already within missile range. "Mayday, Mayday, this is Siren 11 declaring emergency," she transmitted, her voice steady despite the chaos. Multiple bandits bearing 270 requesting immediate backup. But the Typhoon had other plans. The electromagnetic interference was devastating, turning her radio into a symphony of white noise and fractured transmissions. She was alone, 30,000 feet above the Pacific, with three of Russia's most advanced fighter jets closing in. The lead felon pilot's voice cut through the static, speaking heavily accented English. "Unknown aircraft, you are in violation of Russian airspace. Identify yourself immediately or we will engage." Siren's jaw tightened. She wasn't in Russian airspace. Her GPS confirmed she was in international waters, precisely where her classified mission parameters had placed her. But something was wrong with her aircraft's identification systems. The electronic warfare suite that should have been broadcasting her friendly codes was silent, making her appear as an unidentified threat. She rolled her Raptor inverted, diving toward the storm deck as tracer rounds lit up the sky behind her. The Russian pilots were skilled, but they didn't know who they were chasing. They couldn't see the faded squadron patch on her flight suit, a siren with wings spread wide, surrounded by 13 combat stars. They didn't know about the classified modifications to her aircraft, the experimental stealth coating that made her nearly invisible to conventional radar. Most importantly, they couldn't read the small, almost imperceptible tail markings that identified her as part of Project Nightingale, a program so classified that even mentioning its existence required security clearance levels most generals would never achieve. As lightning illuminated her aircraft's silhouette, one of the pursuing pilots caught sight of those markings. His voice changed instantly over the radio, switching from aggressive pursuit commands to something approaching reverence. "Wait," he said in Russian, then repeated in English. "That aircraft, those markings. Who is this pilot?" But the storm swallowed his transmission, and Siren continued her desperate dive toward the churning ocean below, unaware that her reputation had just preceded her into what would become the most important dogfight of the 21st century. The gray-green waters rushed up to meet her, and somewhere in the electrical chaos of the storm, a legend was about to be born. Lieutenant Colonel Marcus Thunder, Rodriguez had been patrolling the Korean peninsula for 6 hours when the distress signal finally broke through the atmospheric interference. The transmission was fragmentary, filled with static, but the call sign made his blood run cold. "Did you copy that, Thunder 2?" he asked his wingman, Captain Elena Ghost Volkov. "I think I just heard Siren 11 on emergency frequency." "Impossible," Ghost replied, banking her F-35 Lightning II to match Rodriguez's heading. "Siren's been grounded for 3 months. Career's over, remember. That incident over Syria." Her voice carried the casual dismissal that had become common when discussing Kai Nakamura. The brass had made sure everyone knew about the rogue pilot, who had allegedly disobeyed direct orders and engaged enemy aircraft without authorization. Rodriguez wasn't convinced. He'd known Siren for 8 years, had flown combat missions with her over Afghanistan, Iraq, and Syria. The woman he knew didn't go rogue. She went where others feared to follow. "Ghost, I'm telling you, that was her voice. And if she's broadcasting emergency codes in this weather, something's gone seriously wrong." The Typhoon stretched from horizon to horizon, its spiral arms reaching up into the stratosphere like a massive organic entity. Weather reports had classified it as a Category 4 storm with winds exceeding 150 miles per hour. No sane pilot would voluntarily fly into its heart, which meant either Siren had lost her mind, or she was on a mission none of them knew about. "Thunder 1, Ghost 2, this is Control," came the voice of their flight controller, a young airman whose nervousness was evident even through the radio's compression. "We're tracking multiple unknown contacts in Grid 77 Alpha. Appears to be air-to-air combat in progress. Be advised, that sector is experiencing severe electromagnetic interference." Rodriguez felt his pulse quicken. Grid 77 Alpha was directly in the storm's eye, where the atmospheric pressure created a pocket of relative calm surrounded by walls of wind and lightning. It was also international airspace, technically neutral territory where engagement rules were deliberately ambiguous. If Siren was in there, she was either hunting or being hunted. "Control, Thunder 1 requesting permission to investigate," Rodriguez transmitted. "We're equipped for all-weather combat operations." "Negative, Thunder 1. That sector is classified as no-fly zone until further notice. Maintain current patrol pattern." But Rodriguez was already banking toward the storm. Ghost followed without hesitation, both pilots understanding that some orders were meant to be questioned. As they penetrated the outer bands of the Typhoon, their aircraft bucked and rolled like wild animals. Rain hammered against their canopies with the force of bullets, and lightning turned the world into a strobe-lit nightmare. Then they heard it, the unmistakable whine of jet engines under combat power, echoing through the storm like the cry of mechanical banshees. Somewhere in that maelstrom, a battle was raging. The first visual contact came as a shadow moving through the lightning-illuminated clouds. Rodriguez caught a glimpse of swept wings and twin engines before the aircraft vanished again into the storm. "Ghost, did you see that? Looked like a felon to me." "Confirmed. Russian air superiority fighter. What's it doing this far east?" Ghost's training kicked in automatically, her weapons systems already cycling through target acquisition protocols. But before either pilot could respond, another shape burst from the clouds above them, sleek, angular, moving with predatory grace through the turbulence. It was an F-22 Raptor, and even through the rain and chaos, Rodriguez could see the distinctive modifications that marked it as something beyond standard military issue. The stealth coating had an almost organic quality, like the skin of some deep-sea creature evolved for perfect camouflage. More importantly, he could make out the faint outline of tail markings that shouldn't have existed on any official aircraft. "Jesus Christ," he whispered. "Ghost, you seeing this? That Raptor's got Project Nightingale modifications." He'd heard rumors about the program, whispers in classified briefings about aircraft so advanced they might as well be science fiction. But seeing one in combat was like watching a myth come to life. The Raptor rolled inverted and dove, three Russian felons pursuing it with lethal intent. As it passed overhead, Rodriguez caught a clear view of the pilot's helmet through the canopy. Even at this distance, even through the storm, he recognized the profile. Kai Siren Nakamura wasn't grounded after all. She was flying the most classified aircraft in the American arsenal, and she was about to die unless someone helped her. Captain Yuri Berkut Petrov had been hunting American pilots for 12 years, but he'd never encountered anything like this. The F-22 below him moved through the storm as if the laws of physics were merely suggestions, rolling and diving with impossible precision, while his targeting system struggled to maintain lock. His wingmen, Dmitry Volk, Kozlov and Alexei Malnya Semenov, were having similar difficulties. "She's like smoke," Volk reported over the radio, his frustration evident. "Every time I get tone, she's already gone." Petrov had been skeptical when Moscow briefed them on this intercept mission. Intelligence suggested the Americans were testing new stealth technology in the storm, using the electromagnetic interference as cover for illegal weapons trials in international airspace. But this wasn't a test flight. This was combat flying at a level that bordered on artistry. The American pilot, whoever she was, had led them on a chase through the heart of the typhoon, using the storm itself as a weapon. Lightning strikes had nearly claimed Malnia twice, and the wind shear was so severe that even their advanced fly-by-wire systems were struggling to maintain control. Yet somehow, this lone F-22 was dancing through the chaos like it belonged there. "Berkut, I'm losing hydraulic pressure," Malnia reported. That last lightning strike fried my backup systems. I need to break off and head for friendly airspace." "Negative," Petrov replied. "We stay with the mission. Moscow's orders were explicit: this aircraft cannot be allowed to escape." But even as he spoke, doubt crept into his voice. What kind of mission was worth 3 Su-57s and their pilots? What was this American hiding that made her so valuable? The answer came when the storm parted for a moment, revealing the Raptor in perfect silhouette against the lightning. Petrov's enhanced optics caught details that made his blood run cold: the modified wing geometry, the experimental engine nozzles, and most telling of all, the small markings on the vertical stabilizer. He'd seen those symbols before, in classified briefings about American black projects that officially didn't exist. "Baj moi," he whispered, "this is not a test pilot, this is Nightingale." Project Nightingale was a ghost story among Russian intelligence services, a program so secret that most analysts doubted it existed at all. But here was the proof: 40,000 feet above the Pacific, piloted by someone with skills that defied rational explanation. Petrov realized with growing unease that they weren't hunting a trespasser. They were trying to kill the most dangerous pilot in the American arsenal. His radio crackled with a new voice, speaking English with a slight Japanese accent. "Russian pilots, this is your final warning. Break off your pursuit and return to base. I have no desire to kill you today." The transmission was clear despite the storm, suggesting communication equipment far more advanced than standard military issue. "Negative," Petrov replied, though his voice lacked its earlier conviction. "You are in violation of airspace agreements. Surrender immediately, or we will be forced to engage with lethal force." Silence stretched across the radio waves, filled only by the constant rumble of thunder and the whine of jet engines. Then the American spoke again, and this time her voice carried something that made Petrov's skin crawl. "My call sign is Siren. Perhaps you've heard of me." Even through the static and interference, the name hit Petrov like a physical blow. Every Russian pilot knew that call sign, knew the stories that surrounded it like legends. Siren, the American who had single-handedly destroyed an entire Syrian squadron. Siren, the pilot who had evaded surface-to-air missiles by flying through a sandstorm. Siren, the ghost who appeared without warning and vanished just as quickly, leaving only wreckage in her wake. Intelligence reports claimed she'd been grounded, her career destroyed by insubordination. But those same reports had always been suspiciously incomplete, lacking the kind of detail Moscow usually provided about high-value targets. Now Petrov understood why. They hadn't grounded her, they'd made her disappear into the black world of classified operations, where legends went to become nightmares. "Volk Malnia," he transmitted, his voice tight with sudden apprehension. "We may be out of our depth here." But it was too late for second thoughts. The Raptor had already begun its counter-strike. The storm seemed to bend around Siren's aircraft as she initiated her attack run, transforming from pursued to predator in the space of a heartbeat. Rodriguez watched in fascination as she used the Typhoon's own energy against her pursuers, riding updrafts and downdrafts like a surfer navigating perfect waves. Her F-22 moved with mechanical precision, but there was something almost organic about its flight pattern, as if pilot and machine had achieved a synthesis that transcended normal aviation. "Thunder, are we going to help her or just watch the show?" Ghost's voice carried urgency, but also respect. Even she could recognize exceptional flying when she saw it. Rodriguez was torn between duty and instinct. Their orders were to maintain patrol and avoid engagement, but watching Siren fight 3 Su-57s alone felt like abandoning a fellow warrior in battle. His decision was made when one of the Russian pilots achieved weapons lock, his targeting radar painting Siren's aircraft with the electronic signature of imminent death. Ghost were going active, weapons free, engage the felons. Rodriguez pushed his F-35 into a steep dive, his targeting systems already acquiring the nearest Su-57. Control, Thunder 1 declaring hostile intent. Russian aircraft are threatening American assets in international airspace. Thunder 1, you are ordered to break off immediately. Do not engage, repeat, do not engage. But Rodriguez was already committing to his attack run, his AIM-120 AMRAAM missile streaking toward the Russian formation like a bolt of technological lightning. The missile's active radar seeker painted its target with invisible energy, and the Su-57 defensive systems responded instantly, launching chaff and flares in desperate clouds of metallic confusion. Ghost followed his lead, her own missile launching toward the second felon. The Russian pilots suddenly found themselves fighting on two fronts, their carefully coordinated attack dissolving into chaos as they struggled to defend against multiple threats. In the middle of it all, Siren continued her deadly dance, using the confusion to position herself for a killing shot. The lead Russian pilot, Petrov, according to intercepted communications, was good enough to avoid Rodriguez's missile, but the effort left him vulnerable to Siren's approach. She came out of the sun, her Raptor's stealth profile making her nearly invisible until she was already inside minimum engagement range. Her 20 cannon spoke once, a brief burst that shredded the Su-57 port wing and sent it spinning toward the ocean. "Burkut is hit," came the panicked transmission. "Losing altitude, engines failing." Rodriguez felt a moment of professional sympathy for the Russian pilot. He'd been outmatched from the beginning, sent to hunt a legend with inadequate intelligence and inferior numbers. As Petrov's aircraft disappeared into the storm clouds below, Rodriguez wondered if the man would survive long enough to report what he'd encountered. The remaining two Su-57s broke off their attack, vectoring toward friendly airspace at maximum speed. Ghost moved to pursue, but Siren's voice cut across the radio channel. "Thunder, Ghost, let them go. They're no longer a threat." "Siren, this is Thunder One," Rodriguez transmitted, his voice carrying years of accumulated respect and concern. "Are you all right? We've been hearing some interesting stories about your career status." A pause stretched across the radio waves, filled by the constant drumbeat of rain against their canopies. When Siren finally spoke, her voice carried a weariness that spoke of burdens Rodriguez couldn't imagine. "My career status is complicated, Thunder, but I appreciate the assist. You two probably just saved my life." "What are you doing out here, Kai?" The use of her real name was deliberate, a reminder that beneath the call signs and classifications, they were still human beings who had sworn to protect each other. "This storm is no place for a casual training flight." Another pause, longer this time. Through his enhanced optics, Rodriguez could see Siren's F-22 maintaining perfect formation flight despite the turbulence that was battering his own aircraft. Whatever modifications had been made to her Raptor, they went far beyond cosmetic changes. "I can't discuss mission details over open channels," she finally replied. "But Thunder, what I'm doing out here might be the most important flight of my career, maybe the most important flight anyone's ever made." Her voice carried a gravity that made Rodriguez's skin crawl. "The world's about to change in ways none of us can imagine. And when it does, people are going to need pilots they can trust to be in the right place at the right time." "Siren, you're starting to sound like one of those end-of-the-world movies," Ghost interjected, though her tone suggested she wasn't entirely joking. "What kind of mission requires flying through a Category 4 Typhoon in the most classified aircraft in the inventory?" "The kind that keeps everyone we care about alive to see tomorrow," Siren replied. "Ghost, Thunder, I need you to trust me on this. File your after-action reports however you want, but don't mention the tail markings you saw on my aircraft. Don't speculate about my mission parameters. And don't try to follow me when we part company." Rodriguez felt a chill that had nothing to do with the storm. "Kai, what have they gotten you into?" "Something bigger than all of us, Marcus. Something that makes every other mission we've flown look like practice runs." Her voice softened slightly. "But thank you for having my back, both of you. It means more than you know." The three aircraft flew in formation through the heart of the Typhoon, lightning playing across their wings like electric fire. In the distance, Rodriguez could see the eye wall beginning to break apart, revealing patches of clear sky beyond. Soon they would emerge from the storm into daylight, and whatever was waiting there would change everything they thought they knew about modern warfare. Colonel Rebecca Valkyrie Harrison had been watching the engagement unfold from the USS Gerald Ford's Combat Information Center, her trained eye tracking the electronic signatures of aircraft moving through the storm like ghosts in a digital nightmare. As the carrier's air wing commander, she'd seen her share of unusual situations, but this one defied every protocol in the book. "Ma'am, we're getting conflicting reports from Thunder and Ghost," reported Lieutenant Commander Sarah Chen, the ship's air operations officer. Their after-action reports mention engaging Russian Su-57s in international airspace, but they're being remarkably vague about the identity of the American pilot they assisted. Harrison studied the radar displays, noting the gaps where electromagnetic interference had obscured critical moments of the engagement. What she could see suggested a level of air combat maneuvering that pushed the boundaries of what she'd thought possible in modern fighter aircraft. The American F-22 had moved through that storm like it was dancing to music only it could hear. "Have we identified the pilot of the unscheduled F-22?" she asked. Chen hesitated, consulting her classified communication logs. "That's where it gets interesting, ma'am. The aircraft's transponder codes don't match any scheduled flights, and its electronic signature is unusual, almost like it's equipped with systems we don't have documentation for." "Systems we don't have documentation for," Harrison repeated slowly. In 23 years of naval aviation, she'd learned that phrase usually meant someone was operating in areas where congressional oversight feared to tread. "Lieutenant Commander, I want you to personally contact PACFLEET Intelligence and request full disclosure on any black operations aircraft that might be operating in our area of responsibility." "Ma'am, I already tried. They're claiming no knowledge of any classified operations in this sector." Harrison felt her jaw tighten. The intelligence community's habit of compartmentalization was legendary, but denying knowledge of combat operations in an active theater was dangerously irresponsible. If pilots were dying because the right hand didn't know what the left was doing, someone was going to answer for it. "Pull up the personnel files for Thunder and Ghost," she ordered. "I want to know everything about their background, their training, their previous deployments. If they recognized this mystery pilot, there's a connection somewhere in their service records." Chen's fingers flew over her keyboard, accessing the Naval Aviation Database with practiced efficiency. Rodriguez and Volkov both served in Operation Inherent Resolve, flying close air support missions over Iraq and Syria between 2019 and 2022. They were part of the combined task force that included Air Force assets. "Air Force assets," Harrison mused. "That's where our mystery pilot comes from, isn't it? What Air Force squadrons were operating in that theater during the same time frame? Checking now, ma'am. Looks like multiple units, but one stands out. The 94th Fighter Squadron, call sign Hat in the Ring. They were flying F-22 Raptors on deep strike missions against high-value targets. Harrison nodded. The 94th FS was one of the Air Force's elite units, with a reputation for taking on the missions nobody else wanted. If their mystery pilot had served with that squadron, it would explain the exceptional flying skills she'd witnessed on radar. Any pilots from the 94th with call sign Siren? She asked. Chen's expression changed, her eyes widening as she read the information on her screen. Ma'am, there is a Major Kai Nakamura, call sign Siren, but according to this file, she was relieved of flight status 3 months ago following an incident over Syrian airspace. Status shows as under investigation pending administrative review. Under investigation for what? The details are classified above my clearance level, ma'am, but the incident report mentions unauthorized engagement with hostile aircraft and failure to follow rules of engagement. Chen paused, reading further. There's also a notation that she destroyed 4 Syrian Air Force MiG-29s in a single engagement, with no friendly losses. Harrison felt pieces of a larger puzzle beginning to click into place. A pilot with Siren's reputation didn't get grounded for being too successful. She got grounded for making someone in authority uncomfortable with her methods. And pilots who made the establishment uncomfortable had a tendency to disappear into the black world of special operations, where their talents could be put to use without generating awkward questions from Congress or the media. Lieutenant Commander, I want you to draft a classified message to PACFLET Command. Inform them that we have reason to believe a pilot previously reported as grounded is actively engaged in combat operations using unscheduled aircraft with non-standard equipment. Request immediate clarification on the operational status of Major Kai Nakamura and any related black programs. Ma'am, are you sure you want to go down this road? If she's involved in something classified. Harrison turned from the radar displays to face her subordinate directly. Lieutenant Commander, 3 hours ago, we nearly had an international incident when American and Russian aircraft engaged in combat over international waters. If we're running covert operations that our own people don't know about, it's only a matter of time before someone gets killed by friendly fire. She gestured toward the storm still raging outside the carrier's steel hull. Whatever Major Nakamura is doing out there, it's important enough for her to fly through a typhoon to do it. I need to know if she's protecting American interests or pursuing some agenda that puts my sailors and aviators at risk. Chen nodded reluctantly and began drafting the message. As she worked, Harrison returned her attention to the radar screens, watching the electronic ghosts of aircraft moving through the storm. Somewhere out there, a woman who officially didn't exist was flying a plane that technically shouldn't be possible, on a mission that could reshape the balance of power in the Pacific. The storm was beginning to weaken, its eye wall collapsing as it moved toward cooler waters. Soon, the electromagnetic interference would clear, and Harrison would have a clearer picture of what had happened in the Typhoon's heart. But she suspected that when that clarity came, it would only reveal deeper mysteries. In her 23 years of naval service, Rebecca Harrison had learned to trust her instincts above all else. And her instincts were telling her that Major Kai, Siren, Nakamura was about to change everything. The Typhoon's eye wall collapsed just before dawn, revealing a Pacific Ocean that stretched endlessly beneath clearing skies. Siren's F-22 emerged from the storm like a predator surfacing from deep water, its modified stealth coating gleaming with residual moisture. She was alone now. Thunder and Ghost had returned to their patrol sector as ordered, leaving her to complete her mission without witnesses. Her heads-up display showed she was exactly where she needed to be, 200 nautical miles southeast of Guam, above the deepest part of the Philippine Sea. According to her classified navigation system, she was positioned over the Challenger Deep, the deepest known point in Earth's oceans. It was here, 11 miles beneath the surface, that something waited in the darkness. "Control, Siren 11 reporting on station," she transmitted on an encrypted frequency. "Weather has cleared, commencing reconnaissance sweep." The voice that responded belonged to someone she'd never met in person, but whose authority was absolute. "Siren, this is Nightfall Actual. Confirm you have visual contact with the surface coordinates we provided." Siren adjusted her aircraft's sensors, scanning the ocean below for any sign of disturbance. The typhoon had churned the waters into a foamy chaos, but her enhanced optics could penetrate the surface distortion to reveal what lay beneath. What she saw made her blood run cold. The object was massive, larger than a supercarrier, but with a shape that belonged to no human engineering. Its hull gleamed with the same dark metallic finish as her own aircraft, suggesting materials and manufacturing techniques that pushed the boundaries of known science. Most disturbing of all, it was rising from the depths at a steady rate, its ascent creating a disturbance that would soon be visible to anyone with eyes to see. "Nightfall Actual, I have visual contact with the primary objective," she reported, her voice steady despite the implications of what she was observing. "The craft is approximately 800 meters in length, cylindrical in shape, ascending at roughly 50 meters per minute. At current rate, it will breach the surface in less than 20 minutes. Copy that, Siren. Are your recording systems operational?" "Affirmative. Full spectrum analysis is being conducted and transmitted in real time. Siren's aircraft was equipped with sensors that didn't exist on any standard military platform. Instruments designed to analyze materials, energy signatures, and propulsion systems that conventional physics said should be impossible. As she circled the ascending object, her systems began detecting electromagnetic anomalies that made her skin crawl. The craft wasn't just rising, it was communicating, sending signals into space on frequencies that human technology couldn't generate. The realization hit her like a physical blow. This wasn't a human craft that had been hidden in the ocean depths. This was something else entirely, something that had been waiting down there for who knew how long. Nightfall actual. I'm detecting active transmission from the object. Multiple frequencies, some outside the range of our communication systems. Recommend we consider this a first contact scenario. Silence stretched across the encrypted channel, filled only by the whisper of wind across her canopy and the steady hum of her engines. When Nightfall Actual finally responded, his voice carried a weight that spoke of decisions made at the highest levels of government. Siren, your mission parameters are hereby classified above top secret. What you're observing represents the most significant discovery in human history. Under no circumstances are you to discuss these observations with anyone lacking appropriate clearance. Is that understood? Understood, sir. But what am I supposed to do if this thing breaks the surface? There are civilian shipping lanes within 50 miles of this position. Your orders are to observe and record. If the object demonstrates hostile intent, you are authorized to engage with extreme prejudice. But Siren, if it comes to that, you may be humanity's first and last line of defense. The words hung in the air like a death sentence. Siren had faced overwhelming odds before, had taken on entire enemy squadrons and emerged victorious. But this was different. This was facing the unknown with weapons designed to fight human adversaries, against something that had been hiding in the deepest parts of Earth's oceans for reasons she couldn't begin to fathom. As she watched, the object's ascent accelerated, its hull beginning to displace massive volumes of seawater as it approached the surface. Whatever was about to emerge from the Challenger deep would change humanity's understanding of its place in the universe. And Major Kai, Siren Nakamura, would be the first human being to meet it face to face. Her radar suddenly lit up with multiple contacts, aircraft approaching from the west at high speed. The cavalry was coming, but she suspected it would be too little, too late. Whatever was rising from the depths had been planning this moment for far longer than humanity had existed. The storm had been a convenient distraction, drawing attention away from the real event. Now, as the first rays of sunlight struck the churning waters of the Philippine Sea, The world was about to discover that it was not alone. The first human vessel to detect the disturbance was the Japanese Maritime Self-Defense Force destroyer JDS Atago, patrolling the outer edges of the Typhoons' dissipating storm system. Captain Hiroshi Yamamoto had been monitoring the unusual sonar contacts for the past hour, but what his instruments were showing defied rational explanation. "Sir, the object has breached the surface," reported sonar operator First Class Tanaka, his voice tight with disbelief. "Range is 32 kilometers, bearing 180. It's enormous, sir." Yamamoto raised his binoculars, scanning the horizon until he found what his sonar had been tracking. What he saw made his hands shake. Rising from the Pacific like some primordial leviathan was a craft that dwarfed every ship in the Japanese fleet. Its hull gleamed with an unnatural darkness that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it, and its shape suggested engineering principles that no human civilization had ever developed. "Communications, contact fleet headquarters immediately," Yamamoto ordered. "Priority Alpha transmission. Report that we have visual contact with an unidentified submersible craft of unknown origin. Request immediate support from all available units." "Sir, I'm trying, but our communications are being jammed. Some kind of electromagnetic interference that's blocking all frequencies." Yamamoto felt his blood turn to ice. Whatever this craft was, it had the ability to isolate his ship from the outside world, cutting off any possibility of calling for help. He was alone on the edge of the Pacific with something that shouldn't exist, watching humanity's first contact with a technology that made their most advanced systems look like stone tools. Above them, Major Siren circled in her modified F-22, her sensors recording every detail of the craft's emergence. Her classified communication system was still functional, allowing her to maintain contact with her mysterious controllers, while the surface vessels below found themselves deaf and blind. "Nightfall actual, the object has fully surfaced," she reported. "Dimensions confirm previous estimates, approximately 800 meters long, 200 meters in diameter. No visible propulsion systems, but it's maintaining perfect stability despite the sea conditions." "Any signs of weapon systems?" "Negative, sir. But I'm detecting energy readings that suggest this thing has power sources beyond anything in our current technology base. Whatever it uses for propulsion doesn't involve chemical or nuclear reactions." As Siren completed another orbit of the craft, she noticed movement on its hull. Sections that had appeared seamless were now opening like mechanical flowers, revealing interior spaces that glowed with an otherworldly light. The craft wasn't just a vessel, it was a city, a massive habitat designed to house something that had been living beneath the ocean for an unknowable period of time. Sir, I'm seeing what appear to be launch bays opening along the craft's dorsal surface. Whatever's inside there is preparing to come out. Siren, you are cleared to engage if you observe any hostile actions. But remember, you may be making first contact decisions on behalf of the entire human race. Choose carefully. The weight of that responsibility settled on her shoulders like a physical burden. Every decision she made in the next few minutes could determine whether humanity's first contact with non-human intelligence would be peaceful or catastrophic. She was one pilot in one aircraft, facing something that could revolutionize human understanding of life in the universe. From the launch bays, smaller craft began to emerge, sleek, organic-looking vehicles that moved through the air with impossible grace. They showed no signs of propulsion systems, no exhaust trails or electromagnetic signatures. They simply flew, as if the laws of physics were optional rather than mandatory. Multiple smaller craft launching from the primary object, Siren reported. Count is 12, 15, 18. They're still coming. These things are moving in ways that shouldn't be possible. Siren, are they approaching your position? She watched the craft spread out across the sky, their movements coordinated with mathematical precision. But they weren't approaching her. They were positioning themselves in what looked like a defensive formation around their mother ship. Whatever intelligence controlled them understood military tactics well enough to establish a protective perimeter. Negative, sir. They appear to be taking defensive positions, but I think they know I'm here. Every few seconds, one of them adjusts its heading to keep me in sight. Below on the Atago, Captain Yamamoto watched the aerial display with growing terror. The smaller craft were clearly observing his ship, their attention focused with predatory intensity. He could feel the weight of alien eyes upon him, measuring and evaluating his vessel's capabilities. "Sir, should we sound general quarters?" asked his executive officer. Yamamoto considered the question carefully. If these were hostile forces, his destroyer's weapons might be humanity's only chance of fighting back. But if they were peaceful explorers, opening fire could trigger a conflict that would doom the human race. Like Major Siren circling overhead, he was being forced to make decisions that no military academy had ever prepared him for. Maintain battle stations, but do not power up fire control systems, he finally ordered. If they wanted us dead, I suspect we would be already. The craft that had emerged from the ocean depth continued to hover motionlessly on the Pacific's surface. Its alien geometry, a stark contrast to the natural chaos of wind and wave. Whatever intelligence controlled it was clearly waiting for something. But whether that something was peaceful contact or the right moment to strike, no human being could say. The first attempt at communication came not from the alien craft, but from humanity itself. Dr. Elena Vasquez, the world's leading expert in xenolinguistics and mathematical communication, had been rushed to a classified facility in Hawaii as soon as the craft's emergence had been confirmed. Working with a team of physicists and computer scientists, she had developed a series of mathematical sequences that she hoped would establish common ground with whatever intelligence they were facing. Siren, we're uploading a communication protocol to your aircraft, came Nightfall Actual's voice. You're going to transmit a series of mathematical progressions on multiple frequencies. Prime numbers, Fibonacci sequences, basic geometric relationships, concepts that any spacefaring civilization would recognize. Understood, sir. Initiating transmission now. Siren's modified F-22 began broadcasting the carefully crafted signals, sending them toward the alien craft on every available frequency. The mathematical language was elegant in its simplicity, a universal tongue that transcended the barriers of biology and culture. For several minutes, nothing happened. The alien craft continued its motionless hover while the smaller vehicles maintained their defensive formation. Then, without warning, sirens,